Eala, wherever she plays, the crowds are huge. So I can't wait to see what it's going to be like in her opening match at Wimbledon this year.
July 2025, Centre Court at Wimbledon. A 19-year-old left-hander from Manila steps onto the sport's most iconic stage, following the defending champion onto the grass. For 43 electrifying minutes, she plays with fearless belief, as if no one ever told her she was supposed to lose.
Alex Eala, she's come through and she's beaten Rybakina, she's beaten Svitolina, she's beaten Donna Vekic, the Queen's Club champion. I tell you what, that was some week for Eala. It was almost...
The Wimbledon entry list is released. Somewhere between the names that have lifted Grand Slam trophies and the names still chasing their first breakthrough, one name stands out. On line 29 sits a player who arrived at Wimbledon a year earlier as an unseeded teenager with nothing but belief and a dangerous left hand. Now, 12 months later, she isn't fighting for a place in the draw. She's one of the top 32 players in the tournament. The name is Alex Eala. Sitting there on the Wimbledon entry list are 4 letters and a country code that have never occupied that position before. Alexandra Eala. Phi. Same player. Same tournament. Completely different status. Before we go any further, one thing needs to be stated clearly, because it shapes everything that follows. At the time this script is being recorded, Wimbledon has not yet released its Day 1 order of play for the 2026 championships. That schedule won't be announced until the evening of June 28. So if you've already seen headlines claiming that Eala has been awarded centre court, those reports are based on expectation, not confirmation. Many believe she will be placed on one of the tournament's show courts. Considering the impression she made during her 2025 debut and the rise of her profile over the past year, that assumption is understandable. But it is not yet a fact. What is a fact, and perhaps the more fascinating story, is what the draw itself reveals. Eala arrives at Wimbledon as the number 29 seed, a remarkable leap from where she stood just 12 months ago. Yet her reward is anything but comfortable. Waiting for her in the first round is number 16 seed Eva Lies. And there is a problem. The two have met twice in 2026. Eva Lies has won both encounters. 2 matches. 2 defeats for Eala. Which means that before she can dream about another centre court moment, she must first solve a challenge that has beaten her every time they've faced each other this season. That is the tension at the heart of this entire story. Because 2 things are true at the same time, and neither can be ignored. The first truth is that Alex Eala has arrived. Not as a wild card. Not as a surprise guest. Not as a feel-good underdog story. She arrives at Wimbledon 2026 as the number 29 seed, becoming the first Filipina in the Open era to earn a seeded position in a Grand Slam singles draw. Her name now sits in the same protected section of the bracket as the biggest stars in women's tennis. The Elite 32. The players whose rankings have earned them a degree of protection. The players expected to be here. That achievement alone is historic. But the second truth is far less comfortable. The same draw that confirmed Eala's rise also handed her the one opponent she has yet to solve. Eva Lies. Their first meeting came in the opening round of Roland Garros earlier this season. Lies won. Their second encounter came just 2 weeks ago at Queen's Club, on the very surface both players are about to compete on again. Lies won that 1-2, defeating Eala 6-2, 6-2, and snapping a 6-match grass-court winning streak in the process. That is the rivalry. Not years old. Months old. Not balanced. 2 matches. 2 victories for Lies. And now, on one of the biggest stages in tennis, the story gets its 3rd chapter. Somewhere on Monday, or Tuesday, Alex Eala and Eva Lies will walk onto the grass at Wimbledon with very different things to defend. Lies will be protecting a perfect record. Eala will be trying to prove that her ranking is more than just a number beside her name. So how did she get here? Because the story behind that number 29 seed is not the story most people are telling this week. It begins with the meaning of the seed itself. In professional tennis, being seeded is more than recognition. It is structural protection. The top 32 players in the draw are separated from one another in the opening rounds. A seeded player cannot face another seed in the first round, and they are shielded from the tournament's biggest names during the early stages. For Eala, that means she cannot face a top 8 seed until at least the third round. It is one of the rewards earned through months of results, consistency, and ranking points. And it is the clearest sign yet that Alex Eala is no longer chasing the sports elite. She is now expected to compete among them. For the first time in her career, Alex Eala is not entering a Grand Slam as a player vulnerable to whatever the draw decides to throw at her. She enters with protection. She enters with status. She enters with a seat beside her name. That position was not built over years. It was earned in a stretch so brief it can be measured in days. 12 of them. The turning point was Berlin. The Berlin Open, a WTA 500 grass court event, became the tournament that reshaped Eala's entire 2026 season. Grass had long been considered her least favorable surface. Yet over the course of one remarkable week, she produced some of the biggest victories of her career. In the opening round, she defeated Donna Vekic 7-5, 6-4, overcoming a former Olympic medalist and established top 30 player. Then came an even bigger statement. In the second round, Eala stunned former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina, earning a hard-fought 7-5, 6-4 victory over one of the most dangerous players in the women's game. She wasn't finished. In the quarterfinals, she defeated Elena Svitolina 6-3, 6-4, adding another proven Grand Slam contender to her growing list of victims. 3 elite opponents. 1 surface. 1 extraordinary week. By the time Linda Noskova stopped her run with a 6-2, 6-4 semifinal victory, the damage had already been done, in the best possible way. The ranking points from Berlin pushed Eala from the edge of the top 35 into the top 30, securing the breakthrough she had been chasing all season. That is why there is a number next to her name at Wimbledon. That is why she arrives in London as the number 29 seed. But Berlin's story ended with a loss. And the next loss came much sooner than anyone expected. Just 1 week later at Queen's Club, Eala found herself across the net from Eva Lies in the second round. The match never truly became a contest. Lies controlled it from the opening games and raced to a 6-2, 6-2 victory in barely more than an hour. Just like that, the 6-match grass court winning streak that had carried Eala through Berlin was gone. More importantly, Eva Lies had once again proven to be a problem Eala could not solve. And now, Wimbledon has brought them together for a third meeting. The stakes have never been higher. What made that loss more significant wasn't fatigue from a deep run, or the physical toll of Berlin. It was the pattern. Because it didn't look like a one-off result. It looked like a repeat. A few weeks earlier, at Roland Garros, the same matchup had produced the same outcome. Different surface, same problem. Eala's left-handed grass court game, so effective against most of the tour, has not yet translated against this particular opponent. Not yet. Take a moment here, because this is where the story stops being simple draw analysis and becomes something closer to a rivalry forming in real time. Most rivalries in tennis take years to develop. They stretch across seasons, surfaces, and stages, gaining meaning each time 2 names are placed on opposite sides of a draw. What makes Eala and Eva Lies unusual is the speed of it. 2 confirmed meetings in 2026. 2 victories for Lies. Both in early round pressure matches at major events. And now, before Wimbledon has even properly unfolded, a third meeting is already on the horizon. That is not how rivalries are supposed to grow. That is how the draw forces one into existence. Which brings us to the question being asked across Filipino tennis circles right now. Where will she play? Center court again. Court 1. A featured show court. The honest answer is simple: the order of play has not been released. Anything suggesting otherwise at this stage is speculation, not confirmation. But the more important question, the one that actually shapes her week, has nothing to do with the court she walks onto. It's what happens when she gets there. His is the question everything comes down to. Can Alex Eala break a pattern in 3 days that she hasn't been able to break in 3 months? Because at this stage, the court she walks onto is almost secondary. The opponent on the other side of the net is the real test. That is the conversation taking place quietly among those who follow the sport closely since the draw was released. Not the venue. Not the spotlight. The matchup. And to understand the weight of it, you have to step back 12 months. Wimbledon 2025. Same tournament. Different version of the story. A 19-year-old Eala walks onto center court as an unseeded debutant against the defending champion. She takes the first set 6-3, announcing herself on the sport's biggest stage with a level of fearlessness few expected. Then the match turns. 6-2, 6-1. She leaves London without a seeded position, without a ranking that reflects contention at the top level, but with something more valuable: proof that she could belong in those moments at all. Now look at her again. Same player in essence. The same left-handed serve, the same forehand shape, the same composure under pressure. What has changed is everything around her. Last year, Wimbledon tested her by placing her directly against the champion. This year, it places a number beside her name and allows the draw to respond accordingly. That number is recognition. It is protection. It is structure. And perhaps the clearest outside reading of this matchup doesn't come from commentary at all. It comes from Eva Lies herself. In reporting from Tennis 365 in June 2026, Lies framed their meetings in a way that stood out precisely because it carried no dismissal. She spoke about their matches as something she expects to see again on bigger stages, even suggesting she would welcome a future meeting in a WTA Tour final. That is not the language of someone who considers the rivalry finished. That is the language of someone who believes it is only beginning. It is the language of a player who has already beaten her twice and knows exactly what that means. Because when the player currently leading the head-to-head is the one publicly describing the matchup as career-defining for both athletes, it reveals something more reliable than any external projection. It tells you how the tour itself is beginning to view it. Inside the locker room, these two names are no longer separate narratives. They are starting to exist as a pair. Linked by results. Repeated by the draw. Reinforced by timing. Whatever happens at Wimbledon, and whatever follows later in the season at the US Open, the fact remains that the number 16 seed is already speaking about the number 29 seed in terms usually reserved for established rivalries. That alone is data. It means Eala is no longer being evaluated only by commentators, or ranked against expectations from the outside. She is being measured by her peers. And that is a different kind of recognition. Now widen the frame. Because what is happening to Alex Eala at Wimbledon is not happening in isolation. The Philippines, a country whose presence in Grand Slam tennis has historically been limited to qualifying draws, wildcard entries, and brief appearances in early rounds, now has a name printed inside the seeded section of a major championship. That is not a sentimental milestone. It is a structural shift. Across Southeast Asia, representation, at the seeded level of Grand Slam draws, has remained limited for most of the Open era. The seeded 32 is deliberately exclusive, 32 players across the entire world, across all surfaces, across all 4 majors each year. A finite space. A fixed hierarchy. An entry into it is not symbolic. It is earned, point by point, result by result, until the draw has no choice but to place your name inside it.